Nick Hundley in control of his future with the Giants. Should best friends work together on this high of a level, and do the playoffs give you hope? It's all coming up on Locked On Giants.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. My name is Alan Stiles. On the show, we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that combines passion, analytics with the eye test, and a little bit of fun. I'm from the Bay Area, but I live in Sacramento now, and I host a show at Sacktown Sports 1140, as well as emceeing at Sacramento River Cats games. All in all, I'm lucky enough to cover a team I've been a fan of all my life. Today, we are discussing how Nick Hundley seems to be in the driver's seat for the Giants manager position. Is his relationship with Buster Posey a big deal? And does watching the playoffs make you feel better or worse about your San Francisco Giants? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So, according to Andrew Baggerly of The Athletic, apparently the ball is in Nick Hundley's court when it comes to the manager position. So here are some quotes from the Athletic article, and then we'll kind of break everything down. Quote, now Posey is calling the shots. He is in the process of selecting the Giants' next manager, and based on how the process has played out thus far, some folks inside and outside the organization will be surprised if Posey chooses anyone other than Hundley to bring his leadership to the Giants dugout. Hundley, who currently works as a special assistant to Texas Rangers general manager Chris Young, has gone through multiple rounds of interviews, and though there is still time in the process for another candidate to emerge, it's becoming widely held expectation the job is Hundley's if he's ready to accept it. Hundley, 42, lives near San Diego with his wife, Amy, and two young daughters, 12-year-old Allie, who has type 1 diabetes, and 9-year-old Haley. 2 years ago, before the Giants hired Bob Melvin, Hundley cited his family situation and his contentment working for Young when he turned down the invitation to interview for the position. He also keeps active in several charitable endeavors, including a ministry in Uganda that built a school and is involved with providing safe water solutions to developing communities. So great stuff from Nick Hundley, just as a life situation. But I don't know how many people know or knew that nugget that they tried to interview Nick Hundley before Bob Melvin the first time. So clearly, Buster Posey is not trying to take no for an answer again, and he really, really wants his guy to be the manager of the future for the San Francisco Giants. During San Francisco's managerial search, one name continually rises: Nick Hundley. One recent report suggests he's not simply waiting for a call, but actively weighing whether he wants the job. So the Athletic article kind of portrays him as a thoughtful, cautious, and not necessarily sold on jumping into a high-stakes role just yet. Hundley, a longtime catcher turned front office executive, has the baseball resume that fits Buster Posey's ideal. Someone who understands pitchers, game strategy, communication, and clubhouse dynamics. But unlike many candidates chasing the opportunity, Hundley hasn't committed. The report indicates he's taken time to evaluate whether managing at this level aligns with his ambitions, lifestyle, and comfort zone. So why the hesitation? They've talked about potential causes: the public scrutiny, the lack of direct experience, the philosophical alignment. All things that Nick Hundley is essentially weighing right now. What this ambiguity does is shift the narrative a little bit. Hundley is not just a candidate, but in this situation, he's a gatekeeper. If he declines, it will force the Giants to widen their search and be more aggressive. If he accepts, it signals that the alignment between him and Posey is deep, not just speculative. In practical terms, this means the Giants can't wait forever. Their window to sign or court managerial candidates is shrinking as other teams make moves. If Hundley remains undecided, the front office may need to balance patience with urgency, keeping secondary targets primed. At the end of the day, Hundley's ambivalence isn't a sign of weakness. It may be evidence that he's taking the role seriously, weighing whether he's the right person right now. And for a franchise searching for identity, that kind of deliberation may serve them better than a flashy, misaligned hire. So I think this whole thing is really interesting because clearly Nick Hundley has some type of interest in this position, or he wouldn't interview. Now, the first time a couple years ago, he decided not to interview. This go round, he has decided to interview. So clearly there is interest there. I think what's interesting is the fact that he's interviewed, but he's still not sure if he wants to take it. So number one, whoever does get hired, they would know, and it's not that big of a deal that they weren't the first pick if it's not Nick Hundley, if he says no. Number two, Buster Posey wants him so much, he's kind of willing to wait. I think my cause to pause here is you shouldn't have to convince somebody to do this job. I don't know if that's the right foot I would want to get on. You know, Buster trying to talk him into it. Come on, we could do great things. This should be something that Nick Hundley wants just off top. And maybe it is. And it's not that it's not something that he wants, but clearly there are other things at play in his life that he's not sure if this is the right time to do it. But at the very least, he's gone through multiple interviews. And the first go round before they got Bob Melvin, which is a funny nugget now, he didn't even take the interview. So clearly he's looking at this a little bit differently than a couple years ago when they hired Bob Melvin, but there are still some question marks whether or not he thinks this is the right time for him and his family to take this job. Being a manager is a lot different than being an assistant to an exec. I would imagine you get to not pop in, pop out, but being a manager, I mean, you are on the grind, not just 162 games, but outside of that as well. So that's something Nick Hundley has to make a decision on. The other part is we discussed it yesterday, all the other teams that have openings. Yeah, the Giants are probably the biggest brand left, but managers aren't going to wait around. And if other guys are being interviewed, Giants have a priority list. I do wonder what's the timeline for Nick Hundley to make that decision, and just the stickiness there. You want to be respectful. I'm sure Buster gave him, I would imagine Buster gave him a timeline, and every second, it's so funny doing the show every single day, because based on when I do it, I'm trying to see, all right, is something going to get confirmed? Is somebody else going to pop up? Because I could post a show and then right after a news breaks, then the show makes zero sense. And obviously we do an emergency show if we were able to, but that's kind of the funny part of it right now, as we're just trying to wait and see when Nick Hundley will make his decision. And the idea that Buster Posey, again, with somebody that does not have direct managerial experience, is willing to wait, and he clearly believes this is his guy, and Nick Hundley is right there in the open, in the driver's seat. So everybody knows. I don't know how, well, number one, how Kurt Suzuki feels, but number two, are you interviewing other people right now? Is the job offer fully out and Nick Hundley is just waiting? It sounds like, hey, it's yours if you want it. We want you to be the guy. So the Giants aren't interviewing other guys right now until they find out what Nick Hundley wants to do. Not a direction or not a situation I thought the Giants would find themselves in, but here we are. Speaking of, Buster Posey has a quote in this article. It's from 2019, but it's a quote that I find very interesting, and I don't know how to feel about it. Maybe you can help me out, whether it's no deal, a little deal, or a big deal. It's about Buster Posey and his relationship with Nick Hundley, and whether or not I think this would be healthy for the work environment. Don't move. More Locked On Giants coming up. The NFL is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. What I love about FanDuel, I love how FanDuel gives me so many ways to play. I built parlays, tried player props, and even followed the live lines during games. It makes watching football even more exciting when you got a little something riding on the action. Whether you're a casual fan or love diving into stats, FanDuel makes the game day experience so much better. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com, download the FanDuel app today to get started. I've been reaching for my new favorite pants almost every day. my Doer jeans. These are the most comfortable jeans I've ever worn. I almost forget I'm wearing jeans to begin with. I wear them to work, running errands, and just chilling around the house. They're antibacterial, meaning they stay fresh longer, so I can wear more and wash less. The jeans are made with Cool Max that regulates your body temperature and wicks moisture. Keeps you cool and comfortable as temperatures change. Great for any season. Doer combines classic jeanswear style with the kind of comfort and performance you get from athletic wear. It's the best of both worlds. Designed to look great and stay comfortable all day, no matter what you're doing. Doer are pioneers of blending technical innovation with everyday clothing. They invented the original performance denim. There's a reason why they call them the world's most comfortable pants. But don't take our word for it. Go try on a pair for yourself. Doer just opened a store right here in Hayes Valley, so you can feel the difference firsthand. Go check them out at 567 Hayes Street. Mention our promo code LOCKEDONSF in store to get 15% off your first order, or check them out at shopduer.com/LockedOnSF for 15% off. That's shopduer.com/LockedOnSF. So the question is, can Buster Posey be objective when it comes to Nick Hundley? Whether that's interviewing him, whether that's hiring him, and how he would be evaluated once that happens. Let's talk about the human side of the Giants managerial search, because it's becoming clear that this just isn't about strategy, analytics, or baseball philosophy. It's about relationships. And that's life, by the way. The question is, where does that line start and end? And nowhere is that more evident than with Buster Posey and Nick Hundley. This is the quote from 2019 when they were teammates. Nick is one of my all-time favorite teammates and one of my best friends. I think he brings so much on a daily basis. We would have loved to have him back for sure. That's not just professional respect. That's genuine affection. Posey clearly values Hundley's leadership and presence, which makes perfect sense. Hundley was a clubhouse glue guy, a catcher who could talk to anyone, steady the room, and connect across generations. But here's where it gets complicated. Can Posey truly be objective about hiring one of his best friends? Friendships like that bring both positives and potential pitfalls. On one hand, hiring someone you deeply trust could create instant alignment. Posey knows Hundley's temperament, his ability to communicate, his leadership style, all qualities that fit the culture Posey has said he wants to build around pitching, defense, and accountability. But on the other hand, this isn't a peer-to-peer friendship anymore. It's a boss-to-employee relationship. If Hundley is hired, Posey will have to make tough calls about performance, staff structure, and even job security. That's where friendships can cloud judgment or at least make things just a little bit awkward. And I've said it before, I don't like working with my friends. Right? I don't think it's a good idea. You're not supposed to live with your friends. You're definitely not supposed to work with your friends, because that can get really, really sticky from time to time. And more often than not, it does. This is where front offices run into trouble. The line between loyalty and leadership. It's not uncommon for executives to hire people that they know, but the great ones are able to separate personal affection from professional evaluation. Posey's challenge will be proving that his decision-making process is rooted in what's best for the organization, not just who he feels most comfortable with. There's also an optics issue, and I have not heard enough people talking about this, to be honest with you. Only on Locked On Giants, that's what I'm talking about. From the outside, it could look like the Giants are turning inward again, hiring from within the Posey circle rather than casting a wide net. And after a 500 season with no clear identity, that might not play well with fans who want fresh thinking and outside energy. So this is where we're at. Posey has to balance his heart and his head. If Hundley is the right guy, if he really is the best to fit and lead this clubhouse and not develop young talent, then that friendship could be a strength. But if it's not, Posey has to be willing to make the hard call against his own instincts and emotional ties. That's a real test of leadership, not just picking the people you like, but picking the people who would challenge you and make the organization better. Let's think about this on paper. Let's just think about this on paper. Buster Posey hires someone with no managerial experience that he is, quote, best friends with, or one of his best friends. Think about that on paper. That's a big deal. And if it doesn't work out, that's a bigger deal. I look at it like a relationship, right? Some people, they have friends that you don't want to leave the friend zone. You might like them. They might like you. You've been friends for a very long time, and you have some decisions to make. You think, hey, maybe we could go at it. And what's the number one thing that people say? I don't want to mess up our friendship, right? I have personal experience with this. I know a lot of you do as well. If it doesn't work out, Buster Posey has to let go of Nick Hundley, or he lets it go longer than he would with a Bob Melvin or somebody like that because that's his boy. Those are both two very awkward situations. If he has to move off of him, that's Buster doing the right thing, but that friendship will just never be the same. I don't think. I think it's really hard to separate. Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I think it's really hard to separate. And on the other side of it, if he is unable to separate, and let's say they have a tough season, whatever it is, and they decide, Buster, we're going to give him another option. And I think some certain things didn't go right. If you have friends, right, and they get into some type of, not trouble, but they get laid off or whatever, you're always going to ride for your friends and say, well, why didn't so-and-so do their job? Or that's not on you because you like them and you're close with them. So in the same situation that Bob Melvin found himself in, if that was Nick Hundley, how do we know Buster Posey's not going to say, well, I mean, it's not your fault that half of the lineup couldn't hit. We put a huge payroll out there. It's not your fault Justin Verlander in the first half couldn't give the Giants good starts. How are you supposed to fix that? I don't know. Maybe I am freaking out over nothing, but this seems like something not enough people are talking about. It's one thing to be friends. It's one thing to have a relationship with. But when you're hiring something or someone that doesn't have direct experience, number two, what did I just talk about in the last segment? You're having to convince him whether or not he wants to do it in some capacity. Obviously he's interviewing, but there's a reason Andrew Baggerly posted this article, because it sounds like if he had already made a decision, we'd already have an answer and the Giants would already have a manager. So you kind of throw all these things into the mix, and it's very, very, I don't want to say peculiar, but it's definitely more of a talking point than I think people are giving it credit for. I understand it's not, look, my mom said this. I'm sure your parents or whoever said this to you growing up. It's not what you know, it's who you know. But this might be on a different level, right? When you're talking about that word or that term best friend, that's not just my former teammate. That's not just somebody that I know or we've crossed paths and we've kicked it from time to time. They have a true relationship, and that's beautiful. I'm just not sure we know enough about Buster Posey as the president of baseball operations to know that Buster will clearly be able to separate things, right? To know that Buster will clearly be able to say, hey, no, Nick is my guy, but this is not working out, right? And look, hopefully that's not the case, because I know the Giants don't want to move on from another manager in 2-3 years. Hopefully he's a manager forever if he ends up accepting it. But I'm not hearing enough people talk about this. You're hiring, or you're giving the front running position to your best friend, and you don't necessarily know if your best friend even wants to do it. So come on, man. Me and you, we could rock this thing out. It'll be dope. Come on, let's get it done. I don't know if that's how I want my president of baseball operations doing business. And some of it is just the human aspect, and I get all that. But that is something that will come back up if this thing doesn't go well. Hopefully it does. But we're talking about hiring somebody's best friend. Have you ever worked with your friend? Yeah. Doesn't always end well. And if you haven't worked with your friend before, don't live with them unless you're, roommates, college, whatever. Don't live with them. Don't work with them. Keep everything separate, especially when we're talking about somebody being somebody else's boss. They're not peers. You're somebody else's boss. And I know it's different than the normal workplace, the corporate workplace, but I think this is a bigger story than people are making it out to be. So we'll see what happens there. One more segment with you. Watching the playoffs, has that made you feel better or worse about where the Giants are? Don't move. More Locked On Giants coming up. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rougiette. Go Long. That's exactly where Rougiette's Go Long comes in. This isn't just another ED pill. It's a total game changer for confidence. Go Long combines 2 doctor-trusted medications in one dual-action formula so you can get hard and go the distance. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. The process is simple. Connect with the board-certified doctor 100% online, and if prescribed, your treatment ships discreetly right to your door. Get ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom. Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com, promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure you use our code so they know we sent you. One more segment with you, taking a little break from all the coaches talk. As we watch the 2025 postseason, does it make you feel better or worse? Does it give you hope or give you hurt for the San Francisco Giants? There's something bittersweet about watching the playoffs this year. On one hand, you see how some small market teams succeed with depth, pitching, and culture. On the other hand, as you watch those stories, it's hard not to feel how far away the Giants may or may not be from being one of them. Teams like Milwaukee, even the Cubs, they didn't always have the biggest star power, but their identities are clear. They pitch, they defend, they execute in key moments, and they put the ball in play. Okay, they put the ball in play. That kind of consistency is what's missing in San Francisco. The Giants' bullpen collapsed way too often, and the rotation lacked depth, especially after all those midseason trades. The weaknesses get exploited in October, but seeing those teams succeed, it does give me a little bit of hope. If they can do it, so can the Giants, especially with the pieces that they already have in place. If Posey is ready to lean into that pitching and defense identity even harder, San Francisco, I believe, can bridge the gap. Still, there's a sting. Every walk-off, every bullpen meltdown by a contender reminds you the Giants aren't there yet. As the fireworks of postseason baseball light up, you feel both encouraged and frustrated that the Giants aren't there. So is it better or worse? Honestly, it's both. The playoffs show both what the Giants need and how far they have to go. That's it. The Giants, to me, I don't know. And people were going back and forth with me about saying the Giants are a top 12 lineup. Maybe I was a little bit, maybe I had some orange and black colored lenses on, but I do think they have that potential. It's not about the big money guys, right? I believe that Willy Adames, we've seen him kind of get comfortable. Obviously, Rafi Devers. I think it comes down to Matt Chapman's a big money guy, but Matt Chapman should be a 6-7 hitter. I think it comes down to the Jung-Hoo Lees, obviously, what to do with Elliot Ramos. I think Elliot Ramos is a heck of a ball player, a heck of a hitter, but where he fits into your long-term goals, third base as well, and what Casey Schmidt is. So the more I thought about it, the more I said, you know what? Maybe they have a top 12 meat of their lineup with Adames and Devers, but I tend to agree more with everyone that disagreed with me, and I tried to go back and forth. But you know what? I think you're right. I think the Giants, they do need more to be considered a top 12 offense. Again, on paper, right? Depending on what you do, that's obviously the most important thing. But just on paper, I think you might be right. You got to throw in the Mets and teams like that. For example, the Reds don't have a top 12 lineup, but they made the playoffs. So you don't have to make the playoffs to be considered for it, which was my point. But you look at the Mets, you look at other teams that did miss the playoffs. You could even argue the Diamondbacks, to be honest with you, and the Giants are right there. Maybe you could give me top 15. Maybe we can start with top 15 and go from there. So I think the hitting, a lot is being said about the pitching, which I understand why, but I wouldn't sleep on the hitting either because, yeah, there are definitely some holes. And Patrick Bailey, you could put him into a different category as a catcher, but not knowing what you're going to get out of right field, not really knowing what you're going to get out of second base, not really knowing what you're going to get out of center field. And I would say the infield, you essentially know, well, I already mentioned Casey Schmidt in second base, and left field is just a good average ball player, right? That probably isn't going to cut it in the NL West. Well, I'll tell you this much. It hasn't cut it in the NL West. It hasn't cut it in the NL. That's why the Giants are here. Now, it's a combination of both. The Giants keep telling us we're going to focus more on pitching rather than the lineup, which is also cool. But how many times over the course of the season did we see the Giants in a good spot pitching-wise, but they couldn't do anything hitting the baseball? I think, honestly, and you might be a little bit worried about this, I believe that Buster might feel as if it's a fluke. Right? Last season was a fluke as far as hitting the baseball. You got Devers, you got Adames, Matt Chapman, who had a great season the season prior. That's how we got that extension. So I believe Buster thinks that they are better offensively than what they showed. So I don't know how much they're going to do. I'm going to be honest. I would be very surprised if they went after a Kyle Tucker or somebody like that. Ketel Marte obviously is going to, both these guys going to cost a lot. I don't think you're going to be able to get Ketel Marte unless you give the Diamondbacks something that you really don't want to give them as far as the prospects are concerned. So obviously the focus has been pitching. But if I'm Buster Posey, you can't sleep on that lineup either, even at Oracle Park, because you have to have enough to weather through the storm of different guys slumping at different times. And that's what the Giants did not have this season. If only two guys in the lineup were hitting, that's not enough. And that happened far too often. Casey Schmidt would be randomly hitting solo home runs, and Rafi Devers would be doing something, but nobody else doing anything. You cannot have that again. So I'm going to continue to hate watch the playoffs and hope that the Dodgers lose, because that's all you can do at this point. Thank you for watching and listening to Locked On Giants. Be sure to follow me at @_Styles with an I. Also follow our Locked On Giants account. Thank you so much for making Locked On your first listen every single day. For your second listen, find the all-night Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night until the World Series champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will talk to you tomorrow. Until then, peace.